Earlier this year, I felt as if I was losing my focus and every day was starting off on the wrong foot. Yes, I did have a managed and organized to-do list. And yes, I was relying on my calendar in terms of where I needed to be. But it felt as though every morning I was having to ask myself the same question. What should I be focused on now? I was worried that I was neglecting certain parts of my business, but also spending perhaps way too much time on other areas of my business. So what I decided to do was to create a weekly theme or a weekly roadmap, something that I could quickly overlay whenever I needed to make sure that I'm focusing on the things that are most important to me and my business. On the left-hand corner, you can see that I have a calendar here called Daily Schedule. And if I enable it, you can see that I have blocks of time with certain particular headings. These are the 5 to 6 key areas of my business, my 5 to 6 main responsibilities that I want to make sure that I'm addressing or working on each week. But I actually only look at this at a glance, once or twice a day. It's meant to see where and how often I should be focused on something, but when it comes to the day-to-day, I actually typically hide it. But here's the value. You will notice that there are some activities that are more important to me, and therefore I have more blocks of time for them. And then there are other activities, such as admin, that I only need a few blocks. In my example, I only need 2 blocks of time, one on Wednesday and one on Friday. Now, I want to be clear, I wouldn't exactly categorize this as either time blocking or time batching. The reason being is that I don't have any specific projects or any specific tasks waiting for me within any of these events, anything that is specific to that time. What this roadmap or what this weekly theme is meant to do is to ensure that I'm spending enough time in certain areas and perhaps less time than I currently am in other areas, making sure that I am well-rounded and that I am focusing on the things that I need to. And you'll also notice that there are certain activities that I do in the morning, perhaps more often. For myself, YouTube is an important part of the Simpletivity business model. So I'm doing YouTube 4 times a day, and I enjoy it the most first thing in the morning. So you can see that I'm never doing it in the afternoon. Meanwhile, marketing and outreach, you can see twice a week, I have blocks outlined or reserved for them because I'm happy to do that. I've got energy for that at that point in time as well. So let me show you how I created this schedule and some of the things that you should be thinking about if you want to apply this and make sure that you have a well-rounded week and aren't missing anything as a part of it. The first thing that you're going to want to do is identify your roughly 5 to 7 key areas or main responsibilities. And of course, this is going to be unique to every individual, depending on your business, depending on your demands or your industry. You can see here that I've got some fairly generic ones for us to start off with. Admin, we all have some admin activities. Probably some marketing or some outreach if we're contacting others. Many of us have tasks related to content creation, whether that's a blog, a podcast, whether that's social media content. And of course, almost all of us have some type of projects or client work that we need to engage with. But I would encourage you to be a little more specific. You may recall in my list, I had things such as YouTube. I also spend a lot of time focused on my membership community called Streamline Academy. So that is the actual label that I used as well. So instead of just saying content creation, You could say podcasting, or you could say social media content, or whatever is specific in your particular world. Now, the second step, which is very, very important, is that we don't want to just take these 5 or 7 areas and then just sprinkle them evenly across your week. No, some of these are much more valuable or deserve a lot more time than others. So your second step is to actually add the number of hours you would like to work on any of these tasks. But before you start just simply adding hours, here's another key thing I want you to think about. The goal is not for us to block out every minute or every hour of every day. If we go back to my example here, you can see that I'm relatively consistent in terms of having 2 blocks in the morning plus another block in the afternoon. But you'll notice that there are big gaps in between. You'll notice that I have nothing after 3 p.m. I've purposely left nothing here within the Friday afternoon section. I want to be flexible enough so I can move things around. I don't want to be tied to this like we might think of when it comes to time blocking. I want to allow time for the other meetings and the other commitments that I have in my day as well. Remember, this is meant to be more of a roadmap or a theme or a guidepost along the way. So my recommendation is to think of roughly 20 to a maximum of 25 hours for the total of all of your responsibilities here. The goal is not to add this up to 30 or 40 hours for the week. So you might want to start with the most important one on your list. Projects and client work is probably pretty important for most of us. I'm going to give that a 6. Admin, I'm going to hope I can get through this in as little as 2 hours a week. For a lot of us, many of those admin activities, such as paying for an invoice, renewing a subscription, upgrading our software or downloading software, often only take a few minutes here and there, so you can batch a lot of those activities together. Now, you don't necessarily have to stack rank everything here. It doesn't mean that everything should have a different total altogether. In my example, we're going to keep the math real simple here, so I'm going to have everything at slightly a different level, but it's perfectly all right if you have maybe these middle 3 all at the same number of hours. If they're valuable to you in that way, if they're equal value, then go ahead. But the most important thing is that these values represent how much time you should be working on those particular activities, and be honest with yourself. How valuable are those activities? When you see content creation, and here I've got 5 hours, the second highest number in this particular list, is it bringing in that much value? If I'm going to be spending that much time, we want to get this right first before we start plugging things into our calendar. So this is some relatively simple math in our example. This is just a total of 20 hours that we are then going to split and sort of mix and match within our calendar. Now, going back to our Google Calendar, and of course, you can set this up in almost any calendar of your choice, including Microsoft Outlook. We want to come and create a new calendar. So of the options that we see here within Google, we're going to select Create a New Calendar, and you can call this whatever you want. In my example, I'm going to call this a daily theme, and I'm going to select Create a Calendar. In just a few seconds, it's going to create it over here. Now, the very first thing I recommend that you do is to pick a very light color. Change the color so that it is not as intense or similar to any of the other calendars that you are using. So here within Google Calendar, one of the lightest default colors is this wisteria. So I'm going to select that one. It's sort of that light purple that we saw before. If you want something even lighter, you can choose this plus button and choose a custom color if you want. But remember, the important thing here is that we're just using this as a guide, so we want it to look almost transparent. You can see when I use my other one here, when I toggle it on or off, it's almost like it's just an overlay. It's so light, and that is by design. The next thing that we want to do is come back and say, okay, how are we going to split up these different areas? So if I'm going to spend 6 hours with projects and client work, is that going to be 2 3-hour blocks? Is that going to be 3 2-hour blocks? How do I want to break these down? Well, going back to my example one more time, you can see that I chose a very uniform approach to this exercise. For me personally, I have found that 90 minutes is almost a perfect sweet spot for me in terms of my focus, in terms of how long I can stay and do really good work in a particular area. So every one of my blocks is exactly an hour and a half. It doesn't mean that I always stick exactly to that time frame, but this felt the most natural to me. So you can see, once again, YouTube is important to me. So I've got that spread out over 4 of the 5 days, but they're an hour and a half blocks. It's enough time for me to get into something and work closely and focus on something. But just when I'm about to lose my focus, that's when I can switch gears and change to another theme. With that, you can now start to add things to your calendar. So for example, maybe Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 10 a.m., this is when I would like to do that client work. So I'm going to give it that title there. You're going to want to come down and make sure that you've selected the correct calendar. So Scott's calendar is my default calendar. It's this deep purple here, but I want to select daily theme because it's going to be part of that particular calendar. It's going to give it that color. And then the other thing I want you to make sure that you select is this busy free toggle, and we're going to select free. We don't want this roadmap or this themed calendar to block or prevent others from booking time with you. Remember, this is just a guide. We don't want to be blocking off time or preventing other meetings from happening. So we're going to select that as free. The last thing that we're going to do here is we're going to come up here and select does not repeat to expand our options here. We're going to click that does not repeat drop down, and we're going to say weekly on Tuesday, and then we can hit save. That means going forward in our calendar, we can see that that client work is always going to show up on that Tuesday. Now, this step of adding all of your blocks may take a number of minutes. And once you've done so, you may need to drag and drop and move things around. Now, that's okay. Let's say that this client work, after we've added other blocks of time, we've decided that actually, maybe it's better if we do that on Wednesday afternoon. We can simply click and drag and move it to where we want to, but make sure when you get this prompt, edit recurring event, that you select this and following events and hit OK. That way, when you move forward, your schedule will be the same as you go into the future weeks. Last but not least, once you have completed adding your schedule and have tried it out for a few days, please don't hesitate to make minor adjustments. If you discover that having this admin task on Wednesday morning just isn't sitting right with you, or maybe you need to address some of those admin tasks earlier in the week, make those changes. Swap it out with something else. But I will leave you with this. The biggest benefits of using a system such as this is that you make fewer decisions at the start of your day or the start of your week. When I get to Wednesday morning, I know I've got time reserved for YouTube content and for admin time as well. No longer am I getting to the end of my week and rushing to complete a number of things because I've balanced out my week with my most important responsibilities and my key areas. Now, if you're wanting further tips and advice on how to create the ideal productivity system for your needs, why not join us at Streamline Academy? You can start for free and join a community of other professionals and small business users who are creating systems that are not one size fits all. Instead, build something as unique as you and your business. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, being productive does not need to be difficult. In fact, it's very simple.